Good morning. This is Sky News Breakfast. Thank you for joining us. Labour is aiming to force the government into a U-turn over its funding to help students catch up on lost learning by demanding a parliamentary vote this week. It comes after the government's education recovery czar quit over the COVID recovery proposals, saying the £1.4 billion fund falls far short of what's needed. Meanwhile, the Education Secretary and the Health Secretary are urging all students to get tested when they return from half-term, warning a huge proportion of new coronavirus cases are carried by children. Jemima Walker has the story.
Education, says the government, is a pandemic priority, but it's also been a policy area fraught with controversy. The unveiling of the Education Catch-Up Plan was no exception to that rule, and saw the government's own School Catch-Up Commissioner immediately resign, citing a serious funding shortfall. Now Labour say they will force a vote on the plan in Parliament this week to try and engineer a U-turn.
Children and young people are our future. We owe it to them to give them the very best opportunities to enjoy their childhood and make the most of their potential. And when I saw this proposal from the government, I'm afraid I thought it was a betrayal of our children and young people.
A government spokesperson says, "We have committed to an ambitious long-term education recovery plan to support children and young people to make up for learning lost during the pandemic." New research paints a bleak picture of the extent of learning loss, with disadvantaged pupils suffering the worst. Nobody sees this picture more clearly than parents.
Any mistakes that we make now in terms of schooling is something we're going to pay for later.
It will have quite a big impact on, certain children where maybe the schools haven't been so well set up with their online learning and things like that during the last lockdown.
They're going to need to dig a bit deeper, as we all have had to during this pandemic.
As half-term draws to a close, the government is urging all secondary school students and their families to take a rapid COVID test, saying they've already played an important role in keeping classrooms open. The reminder has been met with scepticism among some in the sector.
For the government to remind us today about the importance of that is probably not entirely helpful, given we've now got hardly 24 hours before those young people are going to be back in school. So it does feel once again like a government on the back foot.
With COVID cases among secondary school-aged children on the rise, some are arguing that vaccinating them, while ethically thorny, is scientifically sensible.
The Pfizer vaccine is already being used in kids 12 and under in the United States, and it's just been approved in the UK. And so I think it should be rolled out, definitely in the next few weeks, in the next few months before school return in autumn. If we want secondaries back, the simplest way to do it is through vaccinations.
With British children having spent more time out of the classroom than any others in Europe, all sides agree it's vital school gates don't close again. Jemima Walker, Sky News.
Meanwhile, the UK vaccine programme hit a record number of first and second doses last month. NHS data shows more than 13 million injections were given. Meanwhile, some groups have been advised not to wait 12 weeks for their second jabs. Officials say anyone aged over 50 or classed as clinically vulnerable should now rebook. The Prime Minister will call for the rest of the world to be vaccinated by the end of next year when he meets G7 leaders this week. Boris Johnson is expected to say global vaccination sharing is essential to end the pandemic. Well, the latest UK figures show there have been 5,765 new cases of coronavirus reported in a 24-hour period, significantly up on the total on the same day last week, but down on Friday's two-month high. And there were 13 deaths reported, which means the total number of people who've died within 28 days of a positive test now stands at 127,836. Meanwhile, another 174,535 people have received their first vaccination and 360,691 their second dose. It means that 40.12 million people in the UK have now received a first dose of a coronavirus vaccine. Now, despite the UK's successful vaccination programme, coronavirus cases have increased in recent weeks. putting the June the 21st final lifting of lockdown in England under threat. The government says it's drawing up other options before making a decision on whether to end restrictions. Nick Martin has been looking at what the uncertainty means for those planning a special event.
Amy Henderson has had to postpone her wedding 4 times because of COVID. If the government delays the easing of lockdown as planned on June the 21st, it'll be 5 times unlucky.
Weddings aren't being treated fairly compared to the rest of hospitality and other events. So the hard thing is seeing loads of people at a football match celebrating together, or like more people in a pub than would be allowed at my wedding.
Sky News understands the government is devising a contingency plan should it need to rethink its roadmap. At the moment, on June the 21st, social distancing, mask wearing and restricted numbers indoors are all set to be relaxed. Some Tory backbenchers are urging the government to press on.
I think the government's excellent procurement and rollout of the vaccine programme has given it the luxury of a very, very cautious lifting of lockdown measures. I think the British public have played their part, but if we don't get those lockdown measures lifted on the 21st of June completely, I think the public appetite is going to wane very, very quickly to comply with them.
While COVID cases are rising fast, hospitalisations and deaths are not. But the government is said to be concerned about new variants that could be resistant to the vaccine. Chancellor Rishi Sunak, meeting G7 leaders on Saturday, said the government was keeping its options open.
Well, no final decisions have been made. We're looking at the data as it comes in. And as the Prime Minister said, we need to make sure that we vaccinated and protected enough people to give us a reassurance we need, given the new variant that is currently in the UK.
More than 40 million people have now received their first vaccination, and there's evidence that that's picking up. That could be down to a threat of a delay to lockdown easing. Government insiders say they're keen to see all of the data due next week before making any decisions about whether the much anticipated final hurdle to freedom can be overcome. Nick Martin, Sky News.
And questions about whether the government will stick to the June the 21st lifting of lockdown in England, a shorter feature on this morning's Trevor Phillips on Sunday. This morning, Trevor will be joined by the Health Secretary, Matt Hancock, along with Labour's Shadow Education Secretary, Kate Green. That's coming up at 8:30. The Home Secretary, Priti Patel, has written to social media companies telling them to stop posts that glamorise illegal channel crossings. It comes after a TikTok video showing a group of men crossing the channel in a dinghy was seen more than 800,000 times. Well, Harriet Hadfield joins me now from the newsroom and has been following this story. So what exactly is the Home Secretary asking social media companies to do?
Well, what she's really saying is that when they see or spot these kinds of videos showing migrants crossing the channel, then she wants them to act pretty quickly to take them down. We can show you one example of a video that was posted on TikTok. So this one's been viewed 850,000 times, obviously showing a group of men crossing in a dinghy. And the Home Office says that there are many other videos like this, glamorising, as they call it, making the 21-mile crossing over to the UK. And they say there are other videos on social media platforms. And Priti Patel has written a letter to the social media companies. I can read you a little bit of it now. She says, social media companies have made progress in removing these horrendous posts, but they must act quickly and proactively remove posts related to illegal crossings before men, women and children die in the channel. It's been an increasing problem over the past few weeks. 600 migrants have been intercepted by UK and French border patrols. It's something that Priti Patel has vowed that she is going to tackle. She can't blame the social media companies, of course, but perhaps they can play their part.
Harriet, thank you. Events take place in Britain and France today to mark the 77th anniversary of the DDay landings. 22,000 British servicemen and women were killed during the campaign, which began on this day in 1944. Well, Fraser Moore joins us now from the National Memorial Arboretum in Staffordshire. Fraser, morning.
Good morning, and it's a grey and overcast morning so far today, and I guess that's appropriate for D-Day because these were similar conditions to those that were prevalent 77 years ago, almost too bad for the invasion to take place. In the end, though, Eisenhower did give the go-ahead, and we know that the rest from then is history. 77 years is a long time to live with those memories, and today 100 veterans, 100 ex-service personnel will be here to relive those memories and to remember those who didn't make it back. 22,442 Allied service personnel did not survive the D-Day landings and the subsequent battle for Normandy, and today they will be remembered. From the Royal British Legion, I have Bob Gamble here with me now. Today, it's not what was intended because there's an unveiling of this incredible memorial in France, but the veterans will be here to see it on these large screens, won't they?
That's right. We're delighted that we're able to bring them together, not only to witness the opening of the British Normandy Memorial, which, as you say, is just a fantastic edifice overlooking Sword Beach, but also because for the veterans themselves, this is a really key moment when they are able to come back once a year and meet up with their contemporaries and comrades. And that's an important moment that we need to keep pursuing, and the Royal British Legion, as you know, does that every year.
100 veterans here. It's an incredible turnout, and of course virtually all of them, I would imagine all of them, will have spent much of the last year or more than a year shielding. So today is a very special day for them, isn't it, to be able to come together?
That's right, and obviously there's been a fair amount of effort put into making sure that all the social distancing and aspects are provided, as well as some cover while they're here. But the fact of the matter is, once they arrive and they are together, as you'll see when they do the wreath laying, the reality is the most important thing is that they're able to reconnect.
Okay, well, Bob, thank you very much for talking to us. I know you're very busy today to make this event happen. So 100 veterans here from those D-Day invasions will be commemorating this, watching the unveiling of this incredible memorial overlooking one of the beaches where the Allied troops landed 77 years ago today. It will be an emotional day today. It will be a very moving day today, and it will be a day of remembrance.
Indeed. Fraser, thank you. Let's return now to one of our top stories, a warning from the government that it's drawing up other options on plans to lift the lockdown on June the 21st. That's created uncertainty for couples planning to get married. I'm joined now by Sian Holmes and Daniel Whiteley, whose big day is meant to be June the 25th. Good morning to you, and good to see you. So how long have you been planning your big day, first of all?
Good morning, Gillian. Well, we chose our date 2 years ago after we got engaged in February 2019. So it's been a long time coming for us. But most of the details that we've been planning recently have only been in the last 3 or so months. We've just been unable to plan since the first lockdown was imposed. And then when the government announced its roadmap a couple of months ago, that's when we've really been getting our heads back into it. So there's still a lot to do and a very short space of time to do it.
Yeah, and Sian, it must be really frustrating for you because, as I understand it, your guest list is over the 30 stipulation. So what does that mean? Do you have to uninvite people?
Well, exactly, really. We're in a really difficult situation. If we're told the numbers are reduced 11 days before our wedding, the question for us is who on earth do we decide who can and can't come? We've only got 54 guests anyway for the day, and it's what I would describe as a small intimate event, and everyone's already been invited. We've paid for a table plan, which we've got behind us, with everyone's names on. And how on earth do we decide? Do we uninvite our dearest friends since we've known since school? Do we ask aunties and not uncles? I've got a 90-year-old auntie who's been looking forward to this for 2 years. Now she's safely on the list of definites, but still the point remains, how on earth do you decide so late in the day? And how do you tell people? It's just so difficult when everyone's so special to us.
Yeah, no, very, very difficult indeed. I can see behind you that hashtag, what about weddings? Daniel, I mean, that is the issue, that you believe weddings are being treated unfairly in the scale of things.
That's exactly right. You know, and it's not just an issue for couples like us. There are thousands of them up and down the country. I think the wedding sector's estimated that there's going to be around, how many weddings in the first?
50,000.
50,000 weddings in the first month after the easing of restrictions is supposed to take place. So there's couples to think about first of all. Mm-hmm. But it's not just them, it's also their loved ones, their friends and family who've committed to dates, to travel, to accommodation. And it's the thousands of suppliers within the sector who've invested millions in this sector, billions even, in the expectation that they'll be having events to cater for, to provide flowers, to provide AV equipment. It's a huge sector worth billions for the UK economy. But the main thing that we are looking for is not a complete opening up so that people can have massive events, big parties. It's not about that at all. It's about parity for this sector. It's about proportionality and fairness for a sector that covers really important, intimate life events for families, and about there being equality between the wedding sector and the other sectors that have already seen an easing of restrictions, including hospitality, retail, recreation, sport. You know, the great irony
we have
is,
seen, sorry to interrupt, we have seen the recent pilots of mass events with raves and people, that being quite successful, actually, and not that many people actually testing positive post the event. But in terms of your wedding, would you be able to guarantee social distancing? I mean, do you think it would be COVID safe? Sian?
Absolutely. There's ways that we could work with the venue to make sure that it was COVID safe. Social distancing, yes. There's testing, as you rightly point out, the pilot events that recently took place not far from us in Liverpool. The health chief said on the 25th of May, I think it was, that there was no detectable spread after that. That used testing. All of our guests will be happy to undertake tests. 100% of our guests would have been vaccinated. 50% of our guests, over 50%, will have been doubly jabbed. So we just can't see why the wedding sector can't just be trusted to conduct these weddings safely. And the point is, I think, Gillian, is that the government hasn't even addressed weddings when discussing the upcoming restrictions. The government hasn't said anything to us about weddings. It hasn't even mentioned them. Even the scientists that are rightly sharing information, sharing data, haven't actually mentioned weddings. It seems as if these suggestions that are being made by couples in the sector are just being ignored, and I don't know why. And it's really worrying, especially when, if I can point out, this is a female-led industry. I just question why we're still being ignored, really.
Well, listen, Sian and Daniel, I wish you the best for your wedding and really hope that it goes ahead as you have planned it to. Good luck.
Thank you, Gillian.
Thanks.
Time now to take a look at the weather for you with Kirsty. How's it all looking?
Do you know, it's not too bad. I know we had some glorious heat earlier on in the week, maybe a bit too hot. And now we still have a little bit of sunshine around. It's still warm for many, but that heat could trigger a few more showers.
Look forward to brighter skies. The weather, sponsored by Qatar Airways.
Good morning. For many of us, there will be sunny spells today, but a few showers to watch out for, especially in the south. It's quite grey first thing today across parts of southwest England, up through the Midlands, East Wales and towards Yorkshire. Quite a lot of cloud around and some patchy light rain. Could be some heavier showers in the southwest later. Elsewhere, largely dry and bright start to the day. And I think for Scotland, Northern Ireland and the Republic, holding on to the driest and brightest weather, just a small chance of a shower. It is, however, warmer, more humid feeling across East Anglia and the southeast. And here we could see some quite heavy, possibly thundery, slow-moving showers through the afternoon. Most of the showers will move northwards and start to fade away tonight. Tomorrow, a grey start, showers in the east.
Back with me now, broadcaster Anne Diamond and the editor of the Sunday Express, Michael Booker, to take us through the newspapers once again. Starting with you, Michael, first of all, and tell us why Prince William should be rescuing the Union or being called in to rescue the Union. This is according to the Times.
This story has my favourite royal word in the intro. It mentions courtiers, those mysterious people who crop up in royal things with doing these sneaky little things. Now they want Prince William and Kate, the Duchess of Cambridge, to spend a lot more time up in Scotland, particularly up in Balmoral and St Andrews to try and save the union. They say they believe that it is a union of crowns rather than something political. They believe, according to this, that the politicians are losing the union at the moment, and they're quite upset about it. And they believe that by spending a bit more time up in Scotland, like with the tour that Kate and William did recently, that they will be able to help seal that if there is another move to another referendum. Now, you know, it's all well and good, but I just think that, you know, first of all, we've got this political battle, but to a lot of people, to a lot of the fairly normal Scottish people, they'll think, well, hold on, now we've got a king, the next, or one of the future kings trying to get involved, so someone totally unelected. I don't know, I could see this. This could actually backfire in many ways to a lot of people. They won't want suddenly the monarchy putting their tanks on the lawn. The other thing is, as well, if you're going to spend more time in Balmoral and St Andrews, it's not exactly govern or going to see a band at Glasgow's Barrowlands, is it? It isn't exactly what normal people do. So I don't know, I can almost see this riling some people. But it does also, towards the end of this story, show that there is a slight disconnect now between the royal family and Boris Johnson personally, given that they're saying that it's interesting and key that the Queen still hasn't had a face-to-face meeting, even though some of the pandemic rules have sort of been loosened, and that's going back to when he prorogued Parliament, according to this. So there is a bit of frostiness between the royals and the government.
And you're nodding your away on this one.
Well, I was thinking as well that one day Prince William will be Prince of Wales, not Scotland, and I just wonder how that could go down with them. So I agree with Mick. I think, you know, it could backfire there.
Let's look at something completely different now. In the Telegraph, and this story about Trojan puppies carrying a disease that can spread to humans.
Well, I think we all know that during lockdown, many people went out and bought a puppy without too much thought about where they came from. And apparently during lockdown year, we in this country imported, and those are only the ones we know about, 30,000 puppies from Romania, and a lot of them street puppies, if you like, and an awful lot of them carrying this nasty disease called brucellosis, which frankly we haven't heard of in this country for a long time. It's really fatal for dogs. It's a horrible disease for dogs, and humans can catch it too. And for humans, if they catch it, it can be treated with antibiotics, but it's never really got rid of. You live with its problems. So it's a very nasty disease to be importing, which is why they're calling them Trojan puppies here. So if anyone still fancies the idea of a puppy to get them through the, you know, after effects of the pandemic or whatever, you know, be careful where you buy one from, because they could be a puppy carrying brucellosis.
Yeah, I had no idea we'd imported so many puppies. That's a huge number. To the Express now, Michael, and this continuing story about generation lockdown, as they're being called, and the catch-up, how they catch up in terms of education.
Yeah, we've got Gavin Williamson, who's done an op-ed for us today, and again, he's had a bit of a tough week. Obviously, we had Sir Kevin Collins quit quite very publicly with quite a damning statement against the government about how they weren't putting the funding that he wanted in there. Now, in the op-ed, the Education Secretary, he says it will take time. There's under no illusions. We do need a long-term plan. So he is very unspecific in what he says. He's trying to say the right thing, but it is slightly vague. But there is quotes in there from Ellen Townsend, who's a professor of psychology. Now, she's done a lot of work on with this on this subject with the Express during the pandemic, and she says we should be under no illusion about this, that kids, you know, that there is an endless source of resilience that kids have. They need help. You know, the mental health has suffered hugely, not just their education, and there needs to be a focus on them. There is this idea that the focus is quite easily put on furlough and business and things like that, and it's quite noticeable that the government likes to talk about that. But with education, she says they're not coming up with the goods, and I think a lot of people will think that she's entirely right. There's another story knocking around about Gavin Williamson in the papers today, saying that the government would like to reshuffle him, but unfortunately he spent some time with Boris Johnson during his leadership campaign in 2019, and apparently saw some things, which is I think that's code for I know where the bodies are buried, mate.
Interesting, interesting. This next story in the Times, Anne, intriguing how astronomers could help in solving the mysteries of cancers.
This is extraordinary and difficult to understand, let alone explain. But it says here, astronomers are teaming up with the NHS to solve the mystery of cancer patients whose tumours can't be traced. Apparently, thousands of people every year are diagnosed with cancer, but then told there's a complication because doctors don't know where it started. They find the tumours at a late stage, but they cannot find the cause, the primary cause of the cancer. It's known as CUP, which is cancer of an unknown primary. So they've teamed up with a load of astroscientists from Durham University, and they're using what they call astrostatistics, which is basically the statistical way they model for an awful lot of data that they can't understand. So you've got a team of expert astrophysicists teaming up with the cancer experts, and apparently together they can go through all this data at super fast speed and try and find out where those primary cancers exist. Isn't that fascinating?
It is, it is. I think I need to read up a bit more on it. I still don't quite understand the intricacies, but yes, fascinating, fascinating story. Just time for this last one in the Mail. Michael, tell us why naturists want us to put our clothes on.
Well, yeah, they're trying to make some money in naturists. Now, this story proves a couple of things. I think they've got a clothing line out, which you would think would slightly wrong-headed, but they've got some slogans on there with things like, I'd rather be naked and clothing is optional, which shows they don't have clothes and they don't have a sense of humour as well. But according to this, apparently in lockdown, naturism or being nude has boomed, apparently.
Oh.
But
Not in this studio, and I'm sure you'll both stay fully clothed. Thanks so much. See you soon.